Hello everybody, Scott here from Blue Mountain Bigfoot Research, and I'm going to share with you a photo today that I recently shot. And I'm going to preface this a little bit because I want to let you know I've been up here in the Blue Mountains for about 6 years, but I've been looking for Bigfoot for about 25 or so. But in the last 6 years, I've been up here in the Blue Mountains and I've been putting pins in maps. I've been getting reports from people, regular reports, get about 100, about 20 of them are probably credible. And I put pins in maps. So, following a barrage of pretty credible reports, we went up into this area here. I went up with a friend of mine. His name is Don Endicott. He's a fellow squatcher and enthusiast like myself. So we went up in the Blue Mountains and we came across this one spot in the woods and it stopped us in our tracks. The first thing that actually stopped us in our tracks was the smell. Now, I had experienced the smell once before in my life, but that was a long time ago. But apparently, Bigfoot has really bad BO. But to tell you, this smell is distinct. And that just, both of us smelt it, and we both just stopped where we were at and started looking down that hillside. And then we heard a chatter. Now, here is a chatter for you. Now, this was taken a while back and a long ways away from where we are right now, that recording you just heard. I did have a recorder with me, but we were in the middle of a very windy thunderstorm, and this is what I heard. So that's what my recorder picked up. So then Don said, "Is that a face?" Now, if you zoom in on this area right here, and you look very closely, my editing program won't zoom in close enough, but here's a digital zoomed picture of what I took. Now, we could see this clearly with the binoculars, but my camera just had your regular old 35 millimeter lens on it. I had a really nice camera, and one I just got. It's an EOS 6 Rebel Canon. So I zoomed in as far as I could, got it to focus on the log that was in this hole, and I snapped this picture. All right, so I did go back the next couple days, actually. Been back up there a whole lot of times to do a follow-up on this. I did go back and I took another photo, same place, same camera, same lens. The only difference is I was slightly off on my time of day. It wasn't exactly the same, and it was cloudy the next day, so the sunlight wasn't the same. But if I put the pictures side by side, you can see that whatever I was taking a picture of isn't actually there anymore. So if you look at where the face is, and then there's this thing next to it, this area right here. When I first was looking at my photograph, I was like, oh my gosh, is there something there? I was trying to make a face out of it, whatnot. But when I went back and looked for sure, and this is a photo from the reverse of what we were just looking at. And in the middle of that area right there, there is a log, and that's what we're looking at. Above that is that hole that you can see. And I laid down in that hole, and I had my wife took a picture of me. So if something was laying in that hole, it would take up the whole hole. I'm 6'3", and this is what you're looking at when you're coming from laying in the hole, looking back up the hill. And if you look really closely, you can see my wife up there. Like I said, my editing program doesn't zoom very well, but here's a digital zoom in on it, so you can actually tell it's her standing up there in the tree. So it's 165 feet down to that log, and it's at a 32-degree angle down. So on the other side of the log, there's a little puddle of water, and here's some shots of that. It's a little spring that just comes out of the side of the hill. So why would a creature be there? I'm thinking maybe there's easy access to water right there. So 44 feet behind the log is where you can stand and run a string, a straight line, up past the little water, past the log, through that hole, and up to the top of the hill. So that hole's right there. Here's a close up of it right there. So you run the string through there, and you end up 44 feet behind the log and 6 feet in the air. Now, if you see the little line that said possible tracks going up the side of the ridge, here's a shot of one of those prints going up on the side of the hill right there at 44 feet behind the logs. There's the toes, and here's the whole print. Now, this print's a little slid sideways because it is a foot on the side of a hill, which so it slid down a little bit and made a little cup on the bottom of it. That is 16 inches long right there. So that little hillside, I found 3 prints going up the side of that. My illustration isn't to scale, by the way. And that's the little side hill right there going up. And you can see my grandson sitting there on that log that was in that hole. Give you an idea of the size of that. He's about 5 foot tall. And then there's a heel print right here. And of course, none of this is completely conclusive in my eyes, but there's that footprint. I found 3 of those going up the side of that hill. And I'm also have an illustration of where the sun was shining on that day. And it goes down to the hill and it hits that object, which would be 44 feet. There's a little bright light right there. And that is exactly 44 feet behind the log. So 165 feet to the log, 44 feet on the other side of the log, 6 feet up. If you run a straight line from the camera to where that spot of light is, you end up with this photo. Now, I hope that this illustration gives you at least a little context of what we saw. Now I'm going to go into a little bit of photo analysis. I am no expert at this, but I got to looking at that and I said, well, what has a mask like that? And it would be a raccoon, but I found a raccoon picture, edited it in there, made it the same size pixels, so the head's a little bit smaller than most your average raccoon. Of course, that's not scientific or conclusive in any way. I also saw that there's kind of a conical head, which is indicative of a Sasquatch. There's shoulders with a head sit down on the shoulders, like the neck's a little shorter. That's the other thing that's indicative with a Bigfoot. What I saw was a brow ridge, but that's just me being an anthropologist. And that nose reminded me of something. I got to thinking, where have I seen that nose before? Look at the comparison between this and the Patterson film. Yeah, that little bulbous nose in the light there, and those dark setback eyes, that conical head, that prominent chin. You know what? I am not saying that this is Bigfoot. I'm going to be saying that I'm going to leave it up to you to decide. This is probably going to end up in the annals of blob squatch. Most photographs usually do, especially ones that this inconclusive. But it was one exciting day for me, I can say. I know I wasn't hoaxed because nobody knew where I was going to be when I was going to be there. Not even the guy I took with me. He figured it out while we were driving up there where we were going to go. I didn't tell him until we were there. All right, I'm going to leave you with a barrage of colorizations I did just for no reason whatsoever to give you a little bit of comparison, I guess. And like I said, this was a culmination of 25 years of work to get one photograph. Keep it squatchy out there.